Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's video, we are out at the barrier island of Siesta Key, and we're going to talk all about the current state of real estate.
And for those that don't know me real quick, I'm Adam Hancock. I have a real estate group here in Southwest Florida, and I post daily video content on Florida relocation and investment guidance. Please like and subscribe for access to over 100 videos in the last 12 months and counting.
Okay, before we get in too deep, I'm going to run through a little bit of the structure of how the video is going to take place, so it might be a little easier to follow along. So I'm going to start off by talking about a summary of Siesta Key, the barrier island itself, kind of break it into parts, how to think about it, where it's located, why that matters. Secondly, I want to talk about the last 12 months of what kind of moved real estate wise in general, what kind single family versus condo, the average and the medians, when they sold, all that kind of stuff, to give you some context of the real estate market as a whole. Thirdly, I'm going to talk about active listings in the current market. What's different active versus what recently sold? How would you buy now if you wanted to? All the different ways of how that landscape takes place. The fourth thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about kind of the future state, what I think is going to happen, why I think that's going to happen. And then just as an overall kind of overarching on the video as a whole, the way I'm going to structure this one is I'm going to do this kind of walking thing so you can kind of see the island. I'm heading out to the beach now, so you can kind of see that, just kind of nice background while I talk. But I'm also going to try to lay in some side-by-side screen of the numbers I'm talking about. Oh, and you want to, if you go down to the description right now, I'm going to attach a spreadsheet that is the analysis of how this video was created, a model that I built before I recorded this video. So that'd be kind of a nice thing if you wanted to follow along, you're kind of into that kind of thing, then you might want to download that before you start watching. So without further ado, let's hop in. Okay, so Siesta Key as a whole, this island in particular holds kind of some extra sentimental value for me always, because this is actually how I ended up in Florida in the first place. So I was actually born in Maryland and moved here when I was about 3. My son's actually named Solomon after Solomon's Island in Maryland, but my parents were around the Crofton, Maryland area, and they used to vacation here all the time and just completely fell in love with Siesta Key. My parents still live about a mile from here. My dad's like an old sailor pretty much and just putts around the island. But yeah, so that's kind of how I ended up here in the first place. I grew up around here, like deep roots here. This is where I used to hang out in high school. Did the whole thing. You know, I used to fish here almost every single weekend. So I think it's a pretty special place. It's a lovely location. Let me talk a little bit more about how to kind of break down the island. So what you have is basically 3 main parts that exist over pretty much an 8-mile end-to-end island that sits just slightly south of downtown, south of Longboat Key and Lido, north of Casey Key and Venice. And it's a barrier island that has 2 bridges that's just to the west of the central to south Sarasota mainland. And it's basically broken up in 3 main areas. And the way it's broken up is the main area that everybody always thinks of is that kind of is the north end of the island. That's where the main Siesta Key beach is. That's where the Siesta Key village is. That's kind of where all the tourists kind of cluster when they go out. And then you have the middle of the island, which is going to be around the Crescent Beach area. That's going to be closer to the Stickney Point South Bridge. That's where Point of Rocks is. A lot of like short-term condominium rentals and purchases exist in that district. And then you have below that all the way to the southern tip, you have Turtle Beach. That's gonna be a little rockier. A lot of people do surf fishing down there. They have a playground down there, a little bit of recreation, some restaurants. But that's gonna be all the way at the southern tip, right before you cross to Casey Key. And in a nutshell, you have a pretty easy island to get your head around. It's a really attractive location into town. I've done a few videos in the past that I'll tag at the end that kind of get into specifics of shopping and some of the entertainment that's available, a little bit more stuff that doesn't have to do with real estate, just the island as a whole, that I'll make sure to tag at the end. But in this video, I want to get specifically into the numbers a little deeper. So let's dive in and talk about what happened over the last year. Okay, so what's happened over the last 12 months? So what we've had moved basically is 671 total listings. Again, I'm going to talk about kind of a top level view here, supplement this entire thing with my model is way deeper, but I'm going to hit all the main points, show you that to the side. But if you want to get in deeper and more particular to your individual situation, check that out. But we've had basically 671 total listings that have publicly moved on the market. This is not counting pocket listings. And this split was about a 60-40 condo heavy. This would be condo, townhome, villa, was about 60% of those 671 total listings, and the rest being single family. So Siesta Key is a very heavy, pretty much all the time, a very heavy condominium market, but also some affordability that comes with that. Okay, and price-wise, what that puts you at, it's kind of interesting. It's a $1.1 million average at $485 a square foot, but what's interesting about that is the median price was actually 715K that moved or traded at. So what that does is it's still showing you how many properties that are still moving below 700K, and quite a few move below 500K. And that puts Siesta Key in this like really interesting rental market as far as an investment goes. It's always surprising to me how many trade for that price. So I think that was interesting. And the last thing I'll say real quick about cost is annual taxes, not including flood, came in at about an average of just $9,000, which is interesting again, because when you hear out of state, you see you're on a barrier island on the key, still only paying $9,000 annually. And then that's a medium of about $6,100. Again, we have heavy condo here as well. That's not accounting all the extra fees or anything like that. But again, settled at about an average of $9,000 annually for taxes and $6,000 medium. And then locationally, if you kind of scattered these on a map, the way they settled down was about 62% of these sold in that section I mentioned that's the middle of the island, the Crescent, Stickney Point area. And that's gonna be below the main beach and above the South Bridge. So that's very heavy. You can kind of see if 60% of the total sales were condominiums, then you see how many moved there. That makes perfect sense to me. So you kind of see that's where maybe you're honing in if you want to find a value. And then about 25% of those went above the northern beach, which I'm real high on, just locationally, it's a nice spot. A lot of the single families exist there. And the rest kind of shook out south of Crescent, south of the North Beach, in the Turtle area and just random other parts. But you can see the heavy majority, that would be kind of your districts you'd shop in if you're looking for a particular thing, because that's pretty consistent as far as the way they move. Okay, so that's kind of our nutshell of what happened over the last 12 months, gives you some context to what is moving about. We're gonna talk about active listings now to see if the current market is harder to find the value, easier, what the major difference is. I think that's what my context is there that's valuable. Let's hop into section number 3. Okay, so the current market active listings. So this is where it really gets interesting as far as getting a better idea of how to forecast what's gonna happen in the future. So we just saw what happened over the last 12 months. In the current market, we have 142 active listings on MLS. 70% of those are condominium, villa, townhome. 30% of those are single family. So again, so we're right in that same line. Let's talk a little bit about price to see if there's a difference there. Okay, so from a pricing standpoint, the active listings right now, we have an average of about $1.6 million advertised for sale price, which sounds kind of not great compared to the 1.1 we were talking about earlier at about a 50% increase. However, this doesn't tell the whole story, since right now it's interesting. We have a $14 million active listing, which if you think about how much this skews things, the median price right now, advertised price is $720K, and that's against a $715 of median sold price from last year. So what we're looking at is very, very similar. So our active and our sold it's almost identical to a point, which is a little bit easier to get your head around from a prediction standpoint. And also the amount of people that I feel like people are grossly overpaying and that kind of thing, that's the feeling going around. And again, I'm just not seeing it in that way. I'm seeing availability, and I'm seeing how hard it is to win stuff. I've said this a bunch of times, but availability and how hard it is to win stuff is that's real. But as far as like people grossly overpaying, you're seeing it here again, that it's just not really the case, which I think that's a good sign. And you had 182 listings to work with. A lot of them are the same kind of stuff that moved last year for similar prices. So it would say that waiting 12 months in that respect didn't necessarily kill people, which I think is nice to hear. Let's hop to our 4th section, and I want to talk a little bit about what may happen over the next 12 months. Okay, so as far as the near future for Siesta Key's real estate market, I think a few things are gonna happen basically. I think intangibles are gonna remain hot. As scarcity is large, as all this stuff in the other states are happening, I think intangibles, as far as where this place is located, the average price being so low compared to other markets, I think that's going to remain to the forefront of people's minds. Another thing I think is interesting about Siesta Key is the rental restrictions. So Siesta Key is one of the markets like Anna Maria Island that has week or less minimums. And then a lot of it's 30 days or under, so they don't have like the large restrictions like some county overheads hold. And what that's gonna allow is you got a low average price point for condominium with loose rental restrictions. And I think that kind of prime for investment. And then finally, from a kind of an optimistic standpoint, is looking at days on market of what's happened recently. Now, this is kind of in perspective to the current market, but what I saw at the end of January and at the end of February is you had 5 days on market at the end of January. You had 4 at the end of February. It's showing 15 now, you know, but it's a year-to-date number. But I think that what that allows is it's showing how similar active listings were to last year, sold prices, or how similar active listings were to what happened last year, and seeing the availability on the market. I do think this is going to loosen up, especially in these really fringe beach markets because of who's moving here. I think there's going to be opportunity. And it's still, to me, I think the pricing is incredible for what you can get, because I can't imagine how that exists for a long period in the future. So I think that's kind of what's going to take us through 2021. And that's basically all I had for today. I hope that helps you get your head around Siesta Key a little bit more. Again, please use the resources in my description box below. Please reach out if you need anything particular to your situation, and I will see you guys on the next video.